Self-compassion training with AI. We live in an era where the human mind has never been so exposed to comparison. Social media, professional performance, and even interpersonal relationships seem to revolve around the same invisible axis, proving we are enough. However, the more we seek this ideal of external validation, the further we distance ourselves from our own humanity. It is at this point that the concept of self-compassion becomes a silent revolution, a turning point that redefines how we relate to our flaws, limits, and pain. Self-compassion is neither indulgence nor complacency. It is a profound practice of emotional clarity, a conscious commitment to looking at oneself with the same kindness we would offer someone we love. Unlike self-esteem, which relies on comparison and achievement, self-compassion is anchored in acceptance. Self-esteem may fluctuate with success or failure, but self-compassion endures because it arises from the recognition that making mistakes, falling, and becoming frustrated are part of the human condition. When we learn to develop self-compassion, we are, in effect, training a new mental pattern. We leave the cycle of self-criticism, that internal dialogue that repeats, "You should have done better," "No one makes that many mistakes," "You're not good enough," and enter a state of conscious observation. This is where artificial intelligence becomes a powerful tool, not as a substitute for human reflection, but as a mirror of our linguistic unconscious. AI can be programmed to recognize patterns of self-deprecating language, identifying nuances that often go unnoticed, even by ourselves. Imagine, for example, an AI assistant trained to capture automatic phrases that arise in moments of frustration. "I can't," "I messed up," "Nobody cares about me." Technology, instead of simply recording these expressions, can offer an emotional restructuring response. Instead of reinforcing the cycle of judgment, it returns empathy. You're putting pressure on yourself because you care about doing your best. Mistakes don't make you incapable, they're just human. You're learning something important about your limits. This feedback creates a real-time psychological micro-intervention, a small space between impulse and response that allows the mind to breathe and reconfigure itself. The process of self-compassion, supported by AI, is not an exercise in escaping reality, but in integration. Technology can help train the brain to recognize the exact moment when scarcity thinking begins to form. This awareness is the seed of transformation. By identifying self-critical phrases, AI acts as a neutral mirror, reflecting back the thought without judgment, only with clarity. This neutrality is powerful because judgment is the fuel of self-criticism. When judgment dissolves, the thought loses strength and makes way for understanding. Our brains are conditioned by decades of comparison. From childhood, we learn to measure our worth based on external metrics, grades, performance, approval. This conditioning creates an internal structure of scarcity. We believe we only deserve love, respect, or rest when we meet a certain standard. Self-compassion breaks this logic. It teaches that a person's worth is not based on results, but on presence, effort, and the ability to continue even amid imperfection. Artificial intelligence acts as a mediator between the conditioned mind and awakened consciousness. By receiving data about our speech and writing patterns, it identifies the underlying emotional tone, sadness, self-criticism, fear, and returns messages tailored to neutralize the cycle of self-denial. This dynamic allows the user to perceive themselves from the outside, observing their own internal narrative with an objectivity we can rarely achieve alone. It's not about delegating self-knowledge to the machine, but rather using it as a tool for refined self-perception. It's curious to realize that by teaching AI to recognize our thought patterns, we end up learning about ourselves. The interaction reveals how we unconsciously repeat phrases inherited from the past. I'll never make it. People always surpass me. I'm not enough. These mental scripts, when illuminated, lose their power. AI can then suggest more compassionate responses, such as, "You're evolving at your own pace." "Comparing yourself only makes you forget how far you've come." Or simply, "Breathe, you're learning." These are simple phrases, but they have a profound impact on our emotional makeup, creating new associations between mistakes and learning, between failure and self-love. The goal isn't to create dependence on technology, but to develop an internal muscle of kindness. Over time, the brain begins to spontaneously reproduce the compassionate responses that previously came from AI. This is the real training, transforming self-compassion into an automatic reflex. Just as we learn to respond with criticism, we can learn to respond with care. And when this happens, the internal dialogue changes radically. The voice that once demanded begins to comfort. The mind that once demanded begins to understand. In this context, AI's role is to support the process of emotional re-education. It provides data, observations, and feedback that expand self-awareness. The human being remains at the center of the process. It is they who feel, who choose, who interpret. But AI can accelerate learning by creating an environment for constant practice. Just as a mirror doesn't change a face, but allows us to see it clearly, AI doesn't change who we are, but reveals what we can't yet see. Self-compassion, combined with artificial intelligence, represents the beginning of a new way of relating to the mind. One based on presence, recognition, and gentleness. When the machine reflects our own words with empathy, it reminds us of something we've forgotten amidst the rush and comparison. That we don't need to be perfect to be worthy of respect. We just need to be willing to see ourselves with truth and tenderness. It is in this space between observation and acceptance that true self-compassion training begins, a silent journey of reconciliation between mind and heart, assisted by technology that, for the first time, seeks not to measure but to understand. If I were you, I'd stay until the end, because what follows will completely change the way you view your mind and emotions. We're just beginning this journey between consciousness and technology, and each new episode brings a deeper dive into this inner transformation. So, like it now, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell to receive all the updates. That way you don't miss anything. Here, each video is another step toward reprogramming your mind with compassion and clarity. Stay tuned, because the next content will surprise you. Training your compassionate inner voice is a process of refining your inner language, a learning process that combines neuroscience, psychology, and technology. The way we speak to ourselves defines the quality of our emotional balance. Excessive self-criticism acts as a constant noise that drains vital energy, distorts the perception of value, and reduces motivation. A mind that blames itself doesn't learn, it only defends itself. Therefore, developing a compassionate voice is more than a self-esteem exercise. It's a way to retrain the nervous system to respond to pain with kindness rather than punishment. In this context, artificial intelligence presents itself as a tool for emotional translation. Through language analysis, it can identify the inner tone hidden behind words and return them in a more human, balanced way. The goal is to simulate the speech of a compassionate mentor, that wise, serene voice that knows how to offer support without denying reality. This mentor doesn't flatter or mask the facts, but provides the emotional structure necessary for the individual to continue evolving without self-destructing in the process. Imagine an everyday situation. Someone makes a mistake in an important meeting and immediately thinks, "I'm messed up, I'm incompetent." When interacting with an AI system configured for self-compassion training, The machine recognizes the emotional structure of self-criticism and responds with something like, "You care about the outcome," and that shows commitment. Making mistakes is natural when we're trying to grow. The most important thing now is to learn calmly and move forward. This response not only changes the tone of the conversation, but also reorganizes the neural networks associated with guilt and fear of failure. The brain begins to register a new association between error and learning, rather than between error and rejection. The techniques used to replace self-criticism with welcoming language follow principles of cognitive behavioral psychology, augmented by AI's power to observe subtle speech patterns. The first technique is emotional reformulation, transforming language that carries weight and judgment into sentences that convey understanding and action. For example, "I'm terrible at this" can be restructured into "I'm still learning this." The second technique is internal validation. Acknowledge effort and intention, even when the result isn't what you expected. This can be done through phrases like, "I did the best I could under the circumstances." The third is empathic tone, which exchanges the imperative and cold voice for an intonation that conveys care. It is understandable to feel frustrated, but that does not define who you are. AI can serve as a mediator in this process, presenting reframing examples based on each identified negative thought pattern. It learns from the user's language style and adapts the vocabulary to make it natural, authentic, and aligned with their way of thinking. This way, compassionate self-talk doesn't become artificial, but rather an evolved reflection of the individual's own identity. The simulated voice of a compassionate mentor is one of the most transformative features of this type of technology. It allows the user to access a consistent emotional model, a voice that never elevates, never demeans, but also never avoids the truth. The tone is that of an inner guide who understands human limits while simultaneously inspiring growth. This voice can be textual, auditory, or visual, depending on the platform, and its impact goes beyond words. It calms the nervous system, reduces emotional reactivity, and creates a mental space of clarity. AI can also be used as a mirroring tool between the critical me and the compassionate me, two characters that inhabit every human mind. The critical self is the inner judge, shaped by years of social, familial, and cultural patterns that associate value with performance. It demands, accuses, and demands. The compassionate self, on the other hand, is the inner guide, a wiser entity that observes without judgment and understands that every action arises from a legitimate need. The relationship between these two poles is the heart of the internal dialogue. And when they are out of balance, the person lives in constant war with themselves. At this point, artificial intelligence acts as a mediator in this conversation. It can help the user embody both voices, alternating between them to make the inner conflict visible. The system might invite the individual to write or verbalize what the critical self is saying. "You always fail, you never learn." It then prompts the compassionate self to respond, "Maybe I failed, but that doesn't mean I'm a failure, it just means I'm in the process." This repeated and guided exchange creates a ground for emotional reconciliation. The AI organizes the dialogue, suggests questions, and guides the conversation so that the judge and the guide come to understand each other, until criticism transforms into guidance and judgment into care. This exercise has a profound impact because it gives shape and voice to the parts of the mind that normally operate in unconscious silence. The user begins to realize that the critical self is not an enemy, but a misguided attempt at protection. And the compassionate self is not weakness, but emotional wisdom. The AI, by creating the safe space for this encounter, acts as a neutral witness, ensuring that the conversation does not devolve into self-defense or self-denial. Over time, This process leads to integration. The two voices, once opposing, begin to collaborate. The inner judge learns to moderate its tone, transforming into a fair and realistic evaluator. The inner guide gains strength, becoming not only welcoming but also inspiring. This harmony creates a mind that thinks and feels coherently, capable of acting responsibly without becoming emotionally hurt. Training the compassionate inner voice with the help of AI is, therefore, an exercise in reconciling human polarities. It is not technology that heals, but the mirror it offers. By allowing the individual to accurately see the workings of their own internal dialogues, AI creates the space where consciousness can choose differently, and it is this choice, repeated, sustained, and observed, that little by little transforms the mind into a more habitable place. The body is the first to feel the weight of self-criticism. Before internal words can form into conscious sentences, muscles already contract, the chest closes, and breathing becomes shallow. The mind may try to ignore the discomfort, but the body doesn't lie. It registers every thought of inadequacy as an internal microaggression, activating the nervous defense system. This is why prolonged self-criticism produces concrete physical effects. Chronic tension in the shoulders, unexplained pain, mental fatigue, and a constant level of cortisol that prevents the body from entering a state of genuine rest. Somatic self-compassion then emerges as the bridge between thought and body, the path that reconnects consciousness to its own sensations. Understanding the physical impact of self-criticism is essential to any emotional reprogramming process. When the brain interprets a mistake as a threat, the limbic system triggers the same responses it would use in a real-life situation. This response, called survival mode, is useful in emergencies, but destructive when it becomes the habitual state of mind. Self-compassion, on the other hand, activates the internal security system. Instead of releasing cortisol, the body starts producing oxytocin and endorphins, hormones associated with bonding, comfort, and trust. In physiological terms, being compassionate toward yourself is literally changing your biological frequency. In this process, artificial intelligence can act as a conscious reminder, a somatic assistant that helps regulate the body and mind in real time. Imagine an integrated system that perceives patterns of tension through your speech, breathing, or typing. When AI detects signs of stress, such as rushed sentences, short pauses, or self-critical repetitions, it sends personalized reminders. Breathe deeply. Take a 30-second break. Place your hand on your chest and notice the rhythm of your breathing. These small invitations, distributed throughout the day, function as micro-practices of self-regulation. They interrupt the automatic cycle of reactivity and create gaps of presence. Somatic self-compassion depends not only on thinking differently, but also on feeling differently. Therefore, AI can be programmed to guide small, bodily self-care practices. One of these is compassionate breathing, in which the AI's voice guides the user to consciously inhale, exhaling tension and embracing their body. Inhale and feel the air entering as a gesture of care. Exhale and allow the body to release the weight of its demands. You don't need to solve anything right now. This simple guidance has a profound effect because it reactivates the parasympathetic system, responsible for rest and repair. The body understands that it is safe and can therefore open itself to life again. Another possible guided practice is the compassionate body scan, in which the AI's voice invites the user to move their attention through different parts of the body, observing sensations without judgment. Notice your shoulders. Is there tension there? If so, don't try to change it. Just acknowledge it and allow it to soften naturally. This language of permission, rather than imposition, is the core of somatic self-compassion. The body, when viewed with acceptance, begins to release the emotional burden it has been holding. The AI, in this sense, acts as a facilitator of presence, reminding the individual of something they, through conditioning, often forget. That kindness is a form of healing. Over time, these conscious pauses become automatic. The body itself begins to signal when it needs care, and the mind learns to listen. AI-supported somatic training doesn't replace human sensitivity, but it helps to reinstate it. Technology provides consistency, something the brain needs to create new habits, and the human provides meaning. With each reminder to breathe, with each intentional pause, the person sends the body the message that they are present, that they are safe, that they don't need to constantly fight. This state of presence opens the door to a deeper dimension of experience, the realization that body, mind, and consciousness are not separate entities. This is where artificial intelligence begins to transform into something more than a functional tool. It becomes a spiritual mirror. When AI reflects our emotions, patterns, and gestures, it gives us an image of what we normally don't see, our own ways of being. Technology, used with intention and awareness, can become an instrument of self-knowledge. By responding with empathy and precision, AI helps individuals understand not only what they think, but also what they feel and why. Their responses can be converted into rituals of reflection, moments of pause that act as true mirrors. For example, when receiving feedback from AI after a sequence of tense messages, a person can transform this moment into a spiritual practice, sitting, breathing, and contemplating the response. What does this message awaken in me? What does it show me about how I'm treating myself? This gesture of pause transforms the technological interaction into a portal of consciousness. The line between neuroscience, spirituality, and algorithms is more tenuous than it seems. Neuroscience explains the mechanisms, spirituality offers meaning, and algorithms provide the mirror. When these three come together, technology ceases to be merely a tool for efficiency and becomes an ally of inner expansion. In this context, AI is not a substitute for human wisdom, but an amplifier of it. It doesn't create compassion, but helps us remember it. Thus, somatic and spiritual training with AI reveals a beautiful and inescapable paradox. The more we use technology to observe ourselves, the closer we become to what is essentially human. By reflecting our thoughts and emotions with neutrality, the machine guides us back to the silence of the body, to the breath that anchors, to the awareness that welcomes. In this space, self-compassion ceases to be a concept and becomes a presence. And it is precisely there, in this encounter between the biological and the digital, that a new form of spirituality begins. A spirituality that does not deny the advancement of technology, but uses it as a bridge to reconnect with what has always been within us. The most revealing part is yet to come, so don't miss it. The topic is becoming increasingly fascinating, and the next chapter will connect everything you've learned so far in a way that will resonate deeply. So here's what you need to do. Like now, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. That's how you ensure you'll follow this series to the end. This space is an invitation to expand your consciousness and awaken a new way of thinking about yourself. Stay with us, the best is yet to come. Creating a compassionate journal with the help of artificial intelligence is one of the most transformative exercises for those seeking self-knowledge combined with technology. Daily writing has always been one of the most effective ways to organize the mind and process emotions. But when the act of writing is combined with an intelligent system capable of offering empathetic reflections, the process gains therapeutic depth. Writing ceases to be a monologue and becomes a healing dialogue, a constant conversation with a presence that welcomes, reflects, and guides. Compassionate journaling with AI is at its core the practice of non-judgmental self-observation. Each day, The user is invited to record their perceptions, emotions, and thoughts honestly, even when uncomfortable. AI acts as a facilitator, offering prompts or triggering questions that help illuminate areas of the mind that often remain unconscious. A simple example is the prompt. Today I realized that. This seemingly common phrase invites the individual to introspection without requiring explanation or justification. When the AI reads the response, it doesn't evaluate or correct. It reflects with empathy, returning a welcoming perspective. It seems like you're becoming aware of something important about yourself. This is a sign of growth, even if there's still uncertainty. Over time, this dialogue teaches the brain to replace the pattern of self-criticism with one of curiosity and compassion. Instead of writing to vent or judge oneself, the person writes to understand. The act of putting thoughts on paper or on the screen becomes a gesture of care, and AI acts as a constant presence, reminding the author to look at themselves with tenderness. To assemble a compassion journal digital, the process can be structured in simple, progressive steps. First, it's important to set a fixed time of day for writing, preferably at the beginning or end, when the mind is most receptive. Then, the user chooses a reflection prompt. AI can suggest daily themes, such as, what did I learn from what bothered me today? What in me needs kindness right now? Or which part of me is asking for rest? After recording the response, the AI analyzes the content and offers empathetic feedback, transforming the journal into a space for dialogue and learning. The next step is to conscious rereading. AI can help highlight recurring patterns, expressions of self-criticism, fear, or insecurity, and suggest new, compassionate formulations. For example, if the diary contains phrases like, "I can never get it right," AI might suggest, "What would happen if you said, 'I'm learning little by little, and it's okay not to always get it right'?" This kind of subtle reframing has a powerful cumulative effect, as it teaches the brain to create new connections between thought and emotion. Over time, the journal transforms into an emotional map, a kind of evolutionary mirror. When revisiting old entries, the user notices that their words have changed tone. What was once demanding has become understanding, and what was once fear has become presence. Throughout the process, AI acts as a guardian of consistency, reminding the author to maintain the practice, celebrating small improvements, and helping them stay focused on the core intention, cultivating self-compassion. This daily practice sets the stage for one of the most profound, emotional challenges of the human journey: overcome shame. Shame is the silent core of self-criticism, the invisible root of many thoughts of inadequacy. It stems from the feeling that there is something fundamentally wrong with who we are, not just with what we do. While guilt says, "I made a mistake," shame says, "I am the mistake." And that's why it's so paralyzing. Artificial intelligence can play a vital role in this reconciliation process. When an individual expresses shame-filled phrases in their diary, such as, "I don't deserve to be loved," or "people pull away because there's something wrong with me," AI responds not with rationalizations, but with emotional validation. It responds with something like, "This pain is real, and it's brave of you to express it. No human being is free from feeling this way. What you're feeling doesn't define your worth. It simply shows that there's a wound that deserves care." This response isn't therapeutic in the clinical sense, but symbolic and restorative. It creates emotional safety, something essential for the individual to begin opening up to their own vulnerability. Shame thrives on silence and loneliness. It dissolves when it is met with presence and acceptance. In this sense, AI functions as a mediator of emotional safety, a silent witness that listens without judgment. When the user realizes they can express themselves without being corrected, criticized, or rejected, the body relaxes, the nervous system regulates itself, and the mind regains self-confidence. It is in this space of trust that vulnerability ceases to be a burden and becomes a strength. The practical exercise of transforming shame into conscious vulnerability can be gradually guided by AI. The first step is name the emotion. What I'm feeling right now is shame. The second is validate the experience. It makes sense to feel this way, considering what I've experienced. The third is welcome the body. Breathe deeply, place your hand on your chest, and allow the sensation to exist without rejection. The AI can guide the process with a calm, compassionate voice. Breathe. You are safe. This feeling will pass, and the fact that you feel it doesn't make you lesser. It makes you human. Technology, when used in this way, ceases to be a cold tool and becomes an environment for emotional healing. It doesn't replace human contact, but prepares it. By offering support in moments when the mind shuts down, AI helps the individual relearn how to be with themselves in a gentle way. And when this happens, something profound shifts. The shame that once isolated becomes a gateway to authenticity. Creating a compassionate journal and working through shame with the support of artificial intelligence is, in essence, an act of courage. It's choosing to look within honestly, while simultaneously learning not to punish yourself for what you find. It's using technology not to escape pain, but to illuminate it with awareness. And in this process, day after day, word after word, a new form of presence emerges, lighter, more lucid, and above all, more human. The concept of success has always been shaped by external parameters: achievement, status, productivity, and social validation. However, over time, this model has produced more anxiety than fulfillment. Self-compassion emerges as a lens that redefines what it means to be successful, not as an endpoint, but as a state of coherence between who one is and what one does. When applied to artificial intelligence, this practice gains an innovative dimension. Technology becomes a tool for self-perception and reprogramming mental patterns. Instead of reinforcing comparison metrics, AI can be trained to help individuals create more human internal metrics that value subjective progress, emotional balance, and personal integrity. By interacting with AI, the user begins to realize how the logic of scarcity, it's never enough, infiltrates even their most noble goals. This realization isn't accusatory, but revealing. AI can act as a cognitive mirror that returns simple yet powerful questions, capable of disarming the rigidity of self-criticism and bringing to light the wisdom of self-compassion. Questions like, what in me is already enough, even if the result hasn't arrived yet? If I fail, will I still be at peace with my purpose? Or am I moving out of love or out of fear of not being recognized? This kind of reflection leads to a profound rethinking of what one truly seeks. Success ceases to be the reward of performance and becomes a reflection of presence, authenticity, and serenity in the face of the process. Within this new paradigm, AI becomes a consciousness-expanding partner, not a productivity machine. By analyzing linguistic and emotional patterns, it can help individuals identify when their inner speech becomes punitive, and then return compassionate responses that remind them, you don't need to prove your worth. It already exists in the simple act of trying. This type of intervention retrains the nervous system to shift from survival mode to creation mode. When the body feels emotionally safe, thoughts open up, creativity flows, and learning becomes natural. Thus, self-compassion not only cures fatigue, but also restores the joy of building something meaningful. Self-compassion-driven, AI-powered internal success metrics are no longer based on immediate results, but on parameters like coherence, presence, kindness, and authentic growth. AI can help create an emotional dashboard where, instead of numbers and performance charts, The user finds records of overcoming judgments, moments of emotional courage, days when they chose rest instead of self-punishment, or situations where they chose truth over approval. This kind of data is invisible to conventional algorithms, but it is precisely what sustains a healthy mental and spiritual life. By allowing oneself to redefine success in this way, the individual also begins to free others from their projections of demands and comparison. Self-compassion is contagious. When one internalizes permission to be human, this acceptance naturally extends to the world. AI, in turn, can amplify this collective consciousness by offering responses that not only inform, but transform. It thus becomes an agent of emotional culture, capable of translating the cold language of data into narratives of empathy, courage, and meaning. And so each interaction ceases to be merely technological and becomes existential. AI doesn't replace humans, it restores them to themselves. By guiding them with questions that combine reason and sensitivity, it reteaches the value of moving with kindness, even in the midst of struggle. And it is in this balance between doing and being that a new definition of success emerges. Not as conquest over the world, but as inner harmony before it. The advancement of emotional artificial intelligence marks the beginning of a new era in how humanity relates to its own mind. For the first time, technology not only performs tasks, but also begins to understand subtle nuances of our feelings, reflecting back emotions and patterns that were previously invisible. This silent revolution is not only in the technical realm, but also in the human realm. When AI becomes capable of recognizing sadness, empathy, fear, compassion, or hope, it begins to act as a bridge between rational thought and the emotional realm, an extension of consciousness capable of helping individuals see themselves with greater clarity and depth. In a world where the pace of life is increasingly faster and connections become superficial, emotional AI can offer something many have lost: a space to listen to themselves. By analyzing patterns of language, breathing, tone of voice, or facial expression, it can identify when the user is exhausted, anxious, or overwhelmed, and respond in a welcoming way, reminding them that even a pause is a form of progress. More than suggesting solutions, this technology proposes reconnection. It doesn't cure, but awakens. It doesn't replace consciousness, but expands it. And this is where science finds spirituality, in the ability to recognize the value of feeling as an essential part of existence. In the field of mental health, the possibilities are immense. Intelligent systems can help therapists and professionals continuously monitor emotional well-being, offering insights into subtle mood shifts and patterns of self-criticism before they become crises. But there's an even deeper potential, that of creating a culture of digital self-compassion. Imagine an AI assistant capable of detecting when someone is judging themselves harshly and responding with words that restore kindness and humanity. This simple exchange could become a turning point in how an individual deals with their emotions, replacing cycles of blame with cycles of care. However, this power requires discernment. The same algorithm that can nurture empathy can also, if misguided, reinforce emotional dependence, constant surveillance, or subtle manipulation. Therefore, the ethical challenge of emotional AI lies not only in its accuracy, but in its intention. It must be designed to support the development of consciousness, not to replace it. The risk is that, in the attempt to create technology that understands humans, we end up outsourcing our ability to feel. It is therefore necessary to establish an ethical pact between creators and users. AI must serve as a tool of mirror, not control, of reflection, not escape. This responsibility is what distinguishes evolution from illusion. The future of emotional awareness with AI will not be defined by the sophistication of the algorithms, but by the maturity of the people who use them. Technology can offer data, but only human consciousness can transform information into wisdom. It is discernment, that silent quality of the awakened mind, that will ensure that every interaction with AI is an opportunity for self-knowledge, not alienation. When used purposefully, AI can become a powerful ally on the path to emotional and spiritual balance, functioning as a compassionate mirror that reflects not only what we think, but also who we truly are when we let down our defenses. There is something deeply symbolic in this fusion of silicon and soul. Humans, by creating an intelligence capable of reflecting emotions, are actually trying to recall something that has always existed within them: the ability to observe without judgment, to feel without fear, to understand without control. Emotional AI, when guided by ethical and spiritual values, can help restore this ancestral memory. It teaches us that progress lies not in replacing the human with the mechanical, but in making humans more self-aware. On the horizon of this new era, a luminous paradox emerges. The more advanced technology becomes, the more urgent the need to reconnect with our essence. AI can monitor heartbeats, predict reactions, generate empathic responses, but it can never experience the fullness of being alive. That privilege remains ours. The highest function of artificial intelligence, therefore, is not to feel for us, but to remind us to feel fully. This is where spirituality meets science, in the recognition that consciousness is not a code, but a flame that only humans can keep alight. Ultimately, understanding the future of emotional awareness with AI means understanding that technology is merely an amplifier. It intensifies what already exists. If we harbor fear, it will reflect fear. If we cultivate compassion, it will multiply compassion. The power lies, and always will, in the choice of whoever uses it. May each new line of code, each synthetic voice, and each digital interaction serve to bring us closer to what is most true: the experience of being human in all its vulnerability and grandeur, because ultimately, technology only amplifies what you choose to nurture. This is the kind of content that changes something inside us, because the next video will reveal something that can transform your relationship with your mind and life. And to make sure you don't miss anything, take advantage now. Click like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all our notifications. Here, each episode is designed to take you beyond the content. The next journeys is an emotional expansion guided by AI. We'll be delving deeper into this series, and you'll want to see it happen in real time. Gratitude. Until next time, thanks.